Chapter 38, The Picky Mountain God. The human face bird rushed to the place where it caught the little two-legged monster. Where are those people? Where are you it? Yuan Meng, who was hiding in the branches keeping watch, looked up, saw the face bird appearing, and immediately blew a loud whistle on his lips. When the human face bird heard the whistle, it aimed its eyes at the big tree, and soon it found a two-legged monster hiding there. But the canopy of the tree was very annoying, and it was very large. The two-legged monster saw that the bird was coming at him and he shrunk to the middle, and when the human face bird dove down it failed to take him out of the branches. A fierce whistle rang, and the ground on the upper end of a nearby hillock suddenly broke a hole and a head poked from it. Yuan Zhan looked up at the human face bird, and his face immediately became awkward. He turned back. It's Zhu Feng bird. It came again. Lai squeezed from the side and looked out. Zhu Feng bird is the mountain god of Tianshang mountain, and that's where its hunting ground is. How can it still come here? It seems that the meat of the little slave is delicious, and the god mountain bird remembered us. Yuan Zhan looked gloomy at the scene before him. He had only heard the name of the human face bird, but he has never seen it. He saw it for the first time 2 days ago. Because the little slave was caught, the anger and urgency at retrieving his slave exceeded his fear, and he even chased the god mountain bird a long way. When he observed flock of sheep, he found his wooden spear. After he came back, he told Lai about the appearance of the bird and the shape of the human face bird. After listening to it, Lai's face was full of fear, and he immediately told him that the human face bird is probably the mountain god of Tianshang mountain called Zhu Feng, a thing that they absolutely cannot provoke. It is also the blessing of the child to see the mountain god. We shouldn't go out. It will leave if it can't find the prey. Lai went back into the hole. This hole was not temporarily built. The former tribal warriors often went to this piece of hunting lands. Because there was no safe place to settle down, they simply dug a hole in the suitable hillock. The hole was not big. 11 people would make it already full, and they can't even lie down and sleep. They can only take turns standing. The inside of the cave was also quite rough, and the grass roots were everywhere on the walls, and some roots were dragged to the ground. But at least it can shelter from the rain and the wind, and it is not easy for the carnivore to discover the cave opening. Yesterday, it was raining heavily. 11 people started to work together and they managed to expand the hole a little bit, but they didn't dare to dig further. They used to dig up the caves, so even if they were crowded and smaller, they also endured. After the cave was slightly enlarged, the ditches on both sides were dug deeper, so that the infiltrating rainwater can flow out of the cave. Yuan Zhan stood in the cave and clenched the wooden spear. Since he came back and told everyone that his little slave was caught by the mountain god Zhu Feng, everyone did not have hope for Yan Mo's life, and their looks were numb, and they seemed to take it for granted. Cao Ting and Yuan Meng looked a little sad, but did not say that they wanted to save him. Yuan Zhan knows that the reaction of the tribesmen and slaves is normal, that is, Yan Mo was taken away by the mountain god Zhu Feng bird and everyone knows that he will not save him. Because first, Tianshang mountain is located in the southwest of the tribe, and the place was very far away. No one has ever been there. Secondly, Lai orders means no one will be going to be an opponent of the mountain god Zhu Feng. Even the 4th rank warrior like the chief can't even last a minute in battling it. Seeing the mountain god, the only thing they can do is not to attack, but to hide and pass the time. Yuan Zhan also understood these reasons, but this situation makes him very unwilling to sit calm. He is eager to become stronger and eager to do something. Zhan. Yuan Lai called him. Yuan Zhan looked up. Don't think about your slave anymore. After you find the Yunshan tribe, you can take the salt and trade again. If you like the Yunshan/Salt Mountain people, you can exchange for another slave from the Ji/Swine tribe. Yuan Lai also likes the Yunshan/Salt Mountain priest disciple. That was a very good child, but after all, it is a tribe and a slave. It is nothing to lose, and they have a mission, and that is about finding salt. Yuan Zhan also told himself, but, the slave was in front of him and was robbed from his hands. This made him feel shame and unwillingness to swallow his pride, as well as his anger at his incompetent, made him unable to let it go, at least not now. Jean, the stone in the place you said has a salty taste. Shan squeezed out of the hole, because he needed to breathe. It was dawn, they were preparing to go to the place where Jean had said. The day before yesterday, because the Stingers tribe found them, they had a fight with the Stingers tribe and did not manage to go. Yesterday it rained again, they still didn't go to find it. Lai thought that today they could go, but the mountain god Ju Feng bird actually came out again. Now they can't go out, they can only wait for the other party, bird, to leave. Yuan Zhan nodded. Yes, I am pissed off by it. If it was not a big stone, I would come back with it and give it to you so you can taste it. Going by what Zhan said, it must be a big stone, it must be very huge, there are several warriors on the other side. There is still an impression on the terrain. As soon as Yuan Zhan said, the scene of the huge rock wall standing on the ground immediately floated together in the brain. Ah! Meng was imitating the clear and urgent whistle of the birds. Yuan Zhan immediately looked out of the cave. It's bad. Meng! Don't get down from the tree! Yuan Zhan stood in the cave opening and shouted. The color on Yuan Meng's face changed, and he immediately squeezed in the canopy and looked around. Outside the cave, on the water god tree, there was no other than the human face bird hovering. Ju Feng refused to leave, and was circling the water god tree. Just now it found a gap, with a little push, its claws broke the branches that are there. The branches were broken and the gap on the canopy became larger. Unexpectedly, this terrible big bird would be so smart, no wonder Yuan Lai said that this bird is a mountain god should not be provoked. Wow, it wanted to catch him. Anyone who saw such a huge and strangely murderous bird at a close distance will feel fear. This warrior is no exception, he begins to move his body and wants to escape Ju Feng. Meng! Don't move! Yuan Lai's face changed dramatically. The mountain god was so smart that they knew that they could use the claws to break the branches that stood in the way. However, it is the most dangerous to get down from the tree. From the tree to the cave, there is a distance that can't be reached by a flying spear. Although the cave hole was close to the god water tree, Meng running speed would not match up with the legendary mountain god Ju Feng. It's too dangerous for Meng. We have to think of a way to scare the face bird away. Yuan Zhan said. Yuan Lai suddenly turned back. Bing, give your slave to me, I will pay you back. Bing did not say anything, he got up, grabbed the Yang Wei and dragged him to the hole. Yang Wei was dragged, and he did not even have the time to take his walking stick. His injured foot was dragged on the ground, and even his heart hurts after being stressed. But Yang Wei did not beg for mercy, because he knew that it was useless to ask for mercy. The warriors are like this. When they are in danger of being unable to fight beasts, they will throw out the slaves as fresh meat. Without slaves, the oldest and weakest warriors will be thrown out first. When the mountain god Ju Feng appeared outside the cave, it can be said that all the slaves in the cave have already prepared themselves for the possibility of being the bird appetizers. Yang Wei was pushed out. Because his legs were inconvenient, and the force of pushing back is too big, Yang Wei was pushed out and he rolled on the ground for a few laps before stopping. The human face bird, known as Ju Feng, noticed the two-legged monster that was suddenly rolled out from a hole. Ju Feng flew at it and the branches were too troublesome and it was ready to go. Yang Wei propped up his upper body and wanted to stand up and escape, but almost fell because of fear and panic. In the end, he could only walk a few steps on his leg and looked desperately at the human face bird that was rushing toward him. Hey! That two-legged monster leg is broken? No. I want another one. Ju Feng screamed his threat at the hole. Why doesn't it take Yang Wei? Lai Big Eyes couldn't believe it. Yuan Zhan casually said, it is a mountain god, and Yang Wei is probably not worth it. Everyone in the cave actually thinks that Yuan Zhan is right. Also, although Yan Mo is a slave, he is a disciple of the ancient priest before he was a slave, so his worth is a bit higher than that of a warrior. I will go. Cao Ting took the initiative to stand up. Xia Fei and Wen Shang did not speak, but anyone could still see that they were relieved. No one wants to die. For Cao Ting initiative to sacrifice herself, they can only be grateful. Yuan Diao grabbed her hand, but soon he slowly released. Yuan Lai nodded to Cao Ting and said solemnly, "The tribe spirit is with you." Cao Ting walked out of the cave with a wooden stick, and approached Yang Wei. When going out in Cao Ting, Yuan Zhan grabbed the wooden spear and walked out of the hole sneaking. The other warriors quickly squeezed out the hole. Zhu Feng stared at the wooden stick in Cao Ting and first determined that this thing did not pose any threat to him and then stared Cao Ting dragged foot. Hey! Zhu Feng was furious, how come that one has a bad leg too? It can't walk, how can it play with the little two-legged monster back at the nest? Yuan Zhan, who swept out of the hole, looked at Zhu Feng and subconsciously determined that when the people who came out of the cave came out with bad legs. Zhu Feng wings turned and its head turned to Yuan Meng stuck at the tree. Yuan Meng was stuck on the tree and he cried in the trunk while hugging the tree trunk and cried, "God, how come you are back?" The warriors who saw this scene at the entrance were a bit sluggish. How is this mountain god so picky? Do you want a slave like Yao Mo? Yuan Zhan clenched the wooden spear, his eyes were dark and grey, but fortunately he wasn't seen. However, he still has a chance. Zhu Feng stared at Meng hiding in the water god tree, and each time Zhu Feng swooped down, it removed a lot of leaves. Hanging pitifully on the water god tree, Meng looked so innocent, the precious water leaves fell like rain. Grabbing the wooden spear, Yuan Zhan decided to fight. Lai, who was in the cave, was also jumped out. The younger brother was on the tree and he was targeted by the flying bird. The slaves were useless. He wanted to use himself for his brother. But before everyone grabbed, Yuan Zhan moved. He has been staring at the big bird for a long time, and he does not believe that this bird can really be taken down even by the wooden spear. Just as Zhu Feng saw that Yuan Meng's body had been exposed, his claws stretched out to catch him, and the wooden spear was thrown out. When Zhu Feng flashed by, Yuan Zhan's wooden spear shot. Ah! Yuan Zhan used the wooden spear thrown by pulling all of his whole body muscles in the one throw. Zhu Feng turned and saw that the spear was about to hit its body. Just as the piercing point came, Zhu Feng opened its huge and hard beak, and blew out a sharp wind. 1. Futon Repasho, Burrito, fans will understand, or Futon, de Tapa, or Akametu. The wind knife was like a flying arrow which collided with the flying spear. The flying spear deviated from the original track and fell to the far side near Zhu Feng's tail. Yuan Lai and Yuan Zhan, including other warriors and slaves who saw this scene, not one of them can understand and explain why the wooden spear, which was flying well and then suddenly fall from the sky. They only see the wooden spear was about to shoot the mountain god Zhu Feng. The god mountain bird turned his head and opened his mouth, and the wooden spear fell away. Yang Wei collapsed on the spot, and he was unable to support his body. Cao Ting also stumbled and knelt on the ground to beg for the compassion from the mountain god. Holding the trunk, Yuan Meng stared at the big bird that hovered in the sky. Really God? He saw God. He could die without regrets. Suddenly Yuan Meng jumped off the water god tree, ran to the open space, shouted at Zhu Feng in the sky, and jumped around. God, come and catch me. Let go of my people. How can Yuan Lai let his brother grabbed and be made into food? So he rushed over and slammed Yuan Meng's foot. He stood and raised the wooden spear. Catch me, I am here. He said. He still threw the wooden spear against Zhu Feng. Zhu Feng did not look at it, he looked at the two-legged monster that almost threatened him with the almost got spear. And the two-legged monster seems to be a bit familiar, although these two-legged monsters are almost the same, but Zhu Feng memory is not only memorized by the eyes, the sound of the two-legged monster, and the sweaty smell from his body. The last time it caught that small two-legged monster, the little two-legged monster was smelling the same as the big two-legged monster who used a wooden spear to attack him. It seems that this two-legged monster should be a friend of the little two-legged monster, just like him.